This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to Postcards from the Edge. I'm your host, Amy Nelson, and with me this week is Tim Robertson. Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Amy. How are you?
Good. Now, you've been on Postcards a couple times already, a little from our before the Christmas or winter hiatus.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for having me back. I didn't screw up too bad. That's good.
No, really enjoy having you on. I've mentioned you before. You're my wine guy and good friend, so It's nice to have you.
Yeah, well, I love coming on here with you.
Well, today we are going to discuss the fan response to episode 14, The War Without, the War Within. Now, listeners, if you'd like to participate and share your response, please post your comments on the Babel Conference. That's our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field and it will come right up. And every Sunday I post a picture of Discovery in an envelope. And that's where I grabbed the comments for this show. And as of this recording, I'm telling you, every week we get more and more.
It's crazy. I think the first week was like 200 comments.
That's right. We have,
it was nuts.
As of this recording, we have 491 comments. It's crazy. Wow. Into the forest I go, that's for sure.
And we're going to read them all.
Well, let's see.
Sit back, relax.
So first, we always start with our initial thoughts. So Tim, what did you think of this week's episode?
I have to first give a shout out to Lisa Randolph, the author.
Okay.
Rudolph of the Randolph, yeah, of the episode. She writes conversations really well, which is what this episode was. There was a lot of one-on-ones going back and forth.
Yeah.
And they were really good. I mean, I really enjoyed it. There was probably more talking in this episode than any other that we've had.
Yeah.
But it was, we're going to get into it later, character development, but it was something that, we did even more of seeing this week on Discovery. And I liked it. I still have a lot of questions. We'll get into those too. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah. This episode, I really enjoyed. I didn't. Like last week's, I would probably prefer just a little bit more, but this one was really good. And we'll hear our thoughts going throughout.
Yeah, all of our jaws dropped at the final scene, yes.
Yes, for sure. So here's some of our thoughts from our listeners. So we have a new listener. Greetings from Iceland. Really apologize if I slaughter the name. Hakur Clooney's Ross. So
that's how I would have said it.
Yes. Okay, good. And says, I simply love these slow episodes where every scene gets to play out in its time, and the interactions between the characters are so rich. Saru is really winning everyone's heart by voicing the philosophy of Star Trek. He did it again this episode by the way he interacted with Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah, Christopher Littlefield says, holy crap. Oh, wait, can I say crap?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I can say crap. What an episode. I love the Mirror Universe arc, but I'm so glad we're back in our universe. I found Sarek and Tilly to be the very heart of this episode. I was moved by both their heart-to-heart conversations with Burnham. Again, she did a great job writing those. I really enjoyed it. Ash and Michael's scene broke my heart and had me in tears. I won't admit to that, but okay. Big surprise was Giorgio bait and switch at the end. Yes, it was. I'm curious to know what they're trying to accomplish with this deception. Instilling confidence in the crew, dishonoring the Klingons if they think she's alive. I don't know, she was eaten, wasn't she? One thing I really, really appreciated in this episode was the improving relationships and chemistry of Burnham and Saru, even though he found out he was dinner on the Mirror Universe. Their knowing glances at each other when Cornwell first begins to lose it, then seems to have it together at the end, and then their mutual disappointment when they become aware of her deception were everything. Yep, I think these two are holding this ship and the spirit of Starfleet together. With every episode, I feel more and more like this is indeed my Trek. I'm so proud to be on this journey. I couldn't agree more.
Yes, it was very good. Kevin Carmen says, Discovery continues with crazy twists. Saru remains impressive as captain, skirting the awkwardness in the transporter room in favor of focusing on Tyler. I'm still a bit unclear on the morality and even motivation for L'Rell's banishing Voq. Tilly's compassion shines through in the scene in the mess hall and later in her conversation with Michael. The dire straits in which the Federation finds itself would seem to justify desperate tactics, and there is certainly symmetry to seeing another Terran command Discovery. Still, the situation is bound to be messy. Not sure how this can end without time travel and restore the history with which we are familiar. The wait for the finale will seem very long.
Yep. You think time travel's in the future?
I don't know. I've said it last week. I'm totally fine with reset buttons. So if they...
I think it's the only way to fix it.
There's a lot to fix, isn't there?
There's a lot. That's the thing. And a reset, but no, we'll change that later. This episode...
Oh, this is from...
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Chris Chaplin. This episode contains some of the most Trek dialogue in the series. Well, number one, Saru's assurance that he won't take Ash's freedom. Sarek's comments about loving the enemy. And 3, Tilly and company offering support to Ash in the mess hall. Yeah, I had a problem with that, but okay. We'll finally see a Starfleet crew continue to bind together as family under the values of the Federation. The other show's pathos were rooted in how the crew relied on and cared for each other as family. We are seeing that continue here. I can't wait for season 2. Also, Saru is bald. Okay. He adheres to strict moral code then that treats all life with dignity, even Tyler. Reminds me of another bald captain. Oh, okay. So
there you go. He's wrapping it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Wes Huntington says, this one had action, heart, definitely felt for Tyler Voq here with his dealing with Burnham. Definitely love the callback to the Enterprise pilot.
Yep. Kevin Lee, oh my goodness. Heaven Straight, sounds good.
We just call him Kevin H. That's
okay,
right, I
Kevin
forgot.
H. says, an episode like this is always going to feel like table setting, but it's packed with punches from the destruction of Starbase One and Cornwell's emotional devastation over its loss to Stamets' beautiful spore harvesting light show, to Tyler and Burnham's final confrontation. I love the reference to Captain Archer as well. Can't wait to see what happens next in the season finale.
Yes, I agree with Kevin and with Hawker. It was a little slow, but it was this table setting. I thought that was a great comment that it's setting the scene for.
You don't need special
finale.
effects to have Star Trek. It's character development, and that's what we got in this episode.
Yeah. James Berglund says, the depth of acting range in this episode was amazing. Shazid Latif deserves an Emmy for his performance. His interactions with both Saru and Stamets were heartbreaking, and the breakup scene with Burnham was just wow.
Yeah, Shazid, he's like playing the third character now that he's played in the series.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, who is he? No one knows. And it's like he doesn't know who he is either, and I'm loving that. This guy is a great actor. Okay, Cornelia Ruse says, here are my first thoughts on this week's episode. The Klingons in this war are not behaving honorably And even Admiral Cornwell mentions that. Their attacks are what they themselves would describe as cowardly in the 24th century. I wonder if we see the beginning of the transformation into the kind of Klingons we know so well from TNG in later times. The Federation move to put Giorgio in the charge of Discovery is a bold move and might be a slippery slope. Not only to trust her with a powerful ship of the Federation, an organization she obviously doesn't care about and ideals of which she finds awful, she also knows Discovery crossed into the mirror universe with the help of its spore drive. She, like Lorca before her, is now where she needs to be to go back, and I'm sure she could care less what happens to the Discovery and the Klingon War in the process. I'd have to agree with that. Sarek had no issues probing Saru's mind. It would have been very wise of him to do the same thing with Giorgio. Good point. I really loved how Saru stepped up after Admiral Cornwell was still reeling from the destruction of the starbase. Yeah, he just jumped right in and said, get us out of here. And he kept being respectful. True captain quality is right there. I think he deserves a command over the Discovery. I loved it. I can't wait for more. But then again, I'm afraid this is the last episode. It means no more Discovery for a while.
Yes, I
Very
know.
True. How long? What are they going to have? Give us a year off?
We don't know. We don't know when season 2 is going to start, but it's going to be a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of that one?
I think that we will be talking a little bit more, but I think it's great. We're going to talk about the Klingons and the Federation, and yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about the character developments, and there was quite a bit to say. David Michael Farley says, Sarek just totally mind raped Saru. That's not okay. It's an important question to ask in a war story. How far are we willing to go? How much of ourselves do we give up to survive? Is it worth defeating the enemy if you simply become them?
Del Nakamura says there were several scenes that were really moving. Sarek telling Burnham not to regret loving someone. That one got me in the feels. And the Michael Ash breakup scene. Definitely, I shed a tear.
Dan McWilliams says, the part where Stamets and Tyler meet, what the actor does with his eyes and voice were perfect in that scene. What I would be doing. There's some level of acting there I don't think I've seen in Star Trek before. T'Kuvma was an ignorant fool, quote unquote. Zing, oh no she didn't.
Yeah, both Stamets and Tyler in that scene acting.
Incredible. I
mean, you felt you could feel the tension that they had. You know, it was really, really, really well done. I haven't seen that good of acting in Star Trek since Shatner. I mean, it's amazing. Serena Rodriguez says Ash's predicament kind of reminds me of what Picard must have been going through after he was unassimilated.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you've got Locutus and you have Picard, so.
And the fans always take it back to TNG.
That's right. They know how to get on the show. I'm telling you.
You say that every show, too.
All right. Eddie Hagler says, I have no desire to see Burnham-Voq relationship continue. It was always built on a deception. And as far as I'm concerned, totally uninteresting. And we're going to get into this whole Burnham-Voq thing coming up.
Okay. Andrea Boot says, the way that Burnham treated Tyler was horrible. Okay. Tyler is not responsible for the actions that Voq committed. At this point in his recovery, he needs support, acceptance, and love. Instead, someone he's relying on for support is shunning him and making him feel responsible for his actions that were completely out of his control. By blaming Tyler for Voq's actions, and at this point, as far as I'm concerned, the death of Culber and the attempted murder of Burnham were entirely actions of Voq, not the actions of Tyler. I imagine is conflicted, confused, and probably really scared right now.
I tend to agree with Andrea on that. When I was watching it the first time, I was like, why is Burnham being so mean? It was obviously Voq. And I don't even think that we knew Ash Tyler. So it's a very difficult situation. And there was many comments on the thread on the Babel conference. So I would encourage you listeners, if you haven't already, to read through the threads along these lines. Bill Sweet had to say also, did anyone else have a negative reaction to Tyler in that scene with Burnham where he was basically guilting her and kind of gaslighting her? Regardless of the terms you might use for it, he came across as kind of a jerk, considering that he had just tried to strangle her. Maybe that was the intention, and there was yet another great meta message in that scene. Is he that boyfriend that you think you know, who then turns on you and becomes violent and emotionally manipulative?
Yeah, what got me what got me with Burnham is when she said to him, "When I look in your eyes, that I see Volk. I don't see you," and that's you can't get over that. You can't look someone in the eye and you have that memory ingrained in you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. John Wesley Huff said, "It's tricky. I think Ash is like a man who is drowning, and he's sort of flailing and crying out for help. But some of what he says is incredibly manipulative. I tend to think his intentions aren't sinister, but is lying about her, just using this as an excuse to get out of their relationship because they hit a bump in the road or some such. Did seem like he was using his knowledge of Burnham as a weapon to try to get her to help him. Again, I don't think it's ill-intended, just desperate. Maybe he's even a little right, but his attempt to diminish what little bit he's done is not sitting right with me."
Yeah. So they're definitely throughout the threads, I think people are seeing it from both sides. And I think that adds to the discussion. It's has been very good to sort of analyze this relationship. What do you think?
Yeah, it's toxic. I hope there's no more relationship with them, but they will. But I really wish they wouldn't. I don't know if he survives. Yeah. I mean, he's messed up.
I know.
Where's the counselor on the ship?
Thank you. I put that. We need a counselor on the ship.
For everybody. They need a team of counselors on the ship.
All right. Well, moving on, we get to see the Federation response to everything that has happened. And Joey Slowinski says, "Y'all are effed up. This was me shouting at Starfleet leaders at the end of the episode. They are truly out of their minds with this whole plan. I'm excited to see how this turns out next week."
So true. Dennis Blanger says, "Cornwell takes the term desperate decision to a whole new level. That is a bad tactical strategy, if I ever saw it. The center seat is never a good place to put a tyrant." It seems like it is on Discovery. People from the Mirror Universe, they sit right in that chair. It's where they belong.
Luke Sims Jenkins says, "My wife said making her the captain is like letting a murderer go free and making her president. I laughed. We love this one, but for me, it can be tough to get invested in the stakes when I know how it pans out in the future. The perils of prequels, I guess."
Dennis Tramerthick. Is that it? "Considering the information that L'Rell gave the Admiral, I can see why instating the Emperor as Discovery's captain was considered. The off-screen discussion with the Emperor and Sarek must have ultimately proven logical."
Yes. Kay Frick says, "I guess Starfleet isn't used to going on the offense and Terrans are, so maybe it makes sense to put her in the center seat. They likely made a deal with her to take her home if they actually make it back alive from the mission to Great. Isn't it Kronos? Yeah.
Kronos, yeah. Nicole Thomer says, "I'm struggling with the whole Emperor Giorgio posing as Captain Giorgio plot. Doesn't the crew know she's the Mirror Emperor? What seems more likely, that the Mirror Emperor, who we've seen alive very recently, somehow made her way into the Prime Universe, or that Captain, who's been presumed dead and eaten for months, is suddenly back without warning? It also seems a very bad idea. That woman is ruthless. She's made it to the top of the Terran Empire. Do you really think she'll follow the rules now? people aren't too ready to trust her.
Stephen Savoy says, the way I see it, if Starfleet doesn't change tactics, there won't be anyone around to say, well, at least they stuck to their morals. It is too easy for the outsider to be dismissive of it. It's literally survival, and the survival instinct from the mirror universe that seems to be the only way of getting them out of this mess. I am going back and forth, and you're right. If everyone in the Federation dies, well, at least they have their morals. What good is that? But are you going to trade your morals to survive?
But do you think it was a good idea to put Giorgio in the center seat?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, Amy.
I'm very curious to see, are you going to trade your morals and bring in this mutant and tyrant into the center seat?
Well, I don't know. I don't think a short meeting with Sarek will get them to put her, but it worked. I mean, I don't agree. I think, I'm worried about that plan.
All right. Well, let's get on to this Klingon war. We have Brian Diggs is saying, the Federation's motivations aren't good either, though. He, Takuma, correctly described the Federation. They can't help themselves. They seek universal homogenization and assimilation. Because Anderson, and again, I don't know who Anderson is, but we're going to read it. Because Anderson disrespected and insulted the Klingons with a passive greeting rather than honoring them with a Vulcan hello, Giorgio and Anderson refused to follow established protocol for successfully opening diplomatic relations with the Klingons.
He was the admiral in charge of the other ship at the Battle of Binary Stars.
Okay, thank you. Protocols which had been established for hundreds of years before humans even gained warp capability. The humans want to universally homogenize and assimilate the galaxy according to human Federation values rather than conform to or adopt the traditions and values of older alien cultures. Now that the humans have proven their treachery, the Klingons will have to be conquered in order for the war to end. Starfleet tactics failed the Federation. They will be forced to adopt fiercer warrior tactics like Terran strategies in order to survive. When the war and deaths could have been avoided had they just accepted the Vulcan advice to honor Takuma with a Vulcan hello.
Mm-hmm. And the Vulcan hello was? Fire.
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, that whole comeback to the very first episode. That is great, great writing. I really appreciated that.
Zainab Amade says, I'm wondering if Tyler might have a role in convincing L'Rell to do something to aid the cause of peace and simultaneously unite the Klingon Empire. At this point, he knows her intimately, but I'm not sure Tyler, as a human, even with his albino Volk's memories, could be respected by any Klingons. Volk was an outcast all of his life. He's from the house of no one. And it's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So there was another interesting thread on that L'Rell, is she going to, unite the Klingon Empire? Is she going to, come in and be the, what do you call the Klingon head person? Chancellor,
yeah. Well, otherwise she has no value right now to anybody.
Right.
I mean, who is she? What is her worth to the Empire? I don't think the Empire is looking to be united because they're off. If they were, someone would be, hey guys, we work better together as a group.
Yeah.
But it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether I don't know if Ash can do that and get himself in good graces, but can she be trusted? I don't think she could.
She's definitely been trying to play both sides all along.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I don't think she'd be trusted. I don't think there's anybody much that I trust on this ship right now outside Tilly.
Right? I know.
I love Tilly.
Well, there were some bits and pieces that I found throughout the threads, and so we will read them here. Janessa Chiharda says, Cornwell vaporizing the bowl of fortune cookies is now one of my all-time favorite moments of the season. Anyone else notice that uniforms were worn a bit looser now that Lorca is gone?
Didn't notice that. Yeah, what am I going to do with this big bag I bought on eBay of fortune cookies?
Yeah.
I was going to bring it. Maybe I'll bring it to STLV.
Yeah, there you go.
Patrick Carlin. Anyone else catch all the 47s in this one? Stardate, 4789.6, and spore generation at 47%. And the mention of Archer and the NX-01 got me all giddy.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Those were some great moments. And yeah, I heard that 47% on the spore drive. I'm like, whoop, 47.
It's always 47. Larry Nemeczek would be proud.
Jason Sorensen says, nice solid shout out to Archer and the NX-01 crew of Enterprise. Reinforces continuity of Prime Universe. Thanks, Katrina.
Yeah. Hey, I was on the Warp 5 podcast. Have you heard
were. It's in my
Amy,
queue.
I thought you were my friend.
I listened to your Observers podcast.
All right. That's good.
Okay.
All right. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Tangent. Patrick Carlin. I remember theorizing early on that the sport drive stuff could be tied somehow to the Excelsior's class attempt at transwarp engine or Genesis. The spore generation we see in this one could give some credence to the latter.
I also, when I first saw the spore, I was going along that Genesis idea as well, actually.
I just finished Paul Stamets' book.
Yes.
Tricilium Running. It was fascinating.
Awesome.
I was just blown away by the book, and I want fungus now. Yeah. I really do. I think I might grow some. I don't know.
All right. Well, as you know, on Postcards, it's not all about the happy and good feelings. We have some questions and complaints as well. And so we're going to start with Maribel Myers. And she says, my first reaction was, the episode is over. I was the same way. I do and I don't want to see the last episode. It's going to be a long wait for season 2, and season 1 isn't over yet. I was a bit confused as to the forced boarding if they didn't know about the mirror universe. What did they suspect? Ryan Bramble answers, I liken the forced mind meld to the mandatory blood screenings during the Dominion War. In this scenario, they had reason to believe the Discovery was destroyed, so the version had to be a trick. So this version had to be a trick.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, he found out everything he needed from Saru. He didn't need to do anybody else, and it was immediate. I believe someone on the Babel conference was, well, just ask.
Yeah.
Well, who tells the truth on this show? It's like, really? Dave Venstra says, they need an episode to breathe. Stamets versus Tyler and Saru accepting that Burnham ate Kelpin. These are massive emotional events that are just glossed over too easily. I like that they did spend some time with Burnham and Tyler, but it makes the crew seem less real when they aren't given the time to cope. Anyone else think the war will end with a negotiated peace that places L'Rell as emperor of the unified Klingon Empire? Nope. I think there's a big reset button in the middle of the spore drive.
Yeah, I sort of feel like what he was saying, like it makes the crew seem less real when they aren't given time to cope. I can see where you're going, but then I go back to my TNG roots, and it's like, you're the end of the episode, and then next week everyone's all fine, but
that was episodic TV. This is not.
Yeah, so it is making them seem a little less real that, okay, we had one conversation in the hallway and now what? I don't know. I get your point, Dave. I understand you. Christopher Lutz says they get that the Emperor totally has her own agenda, right? Also, how did those spores grow so darn fast? I was in agronomy major in college, and I don't recall studying anything growing quite that fast. So I instantly tagged Nicholas Paul Collinson. He's our biology expert, fungus expert in the conference. And so he says, yeah, I put that down to space fungus. Nothing on Earth grows anywhere near that fast. There are fungi that shoot out spores faster than that. Philobus fungi fire off spores as fast as a rifle bullet. But I think the fastest growing thing on Earth is some genera of bamboo, which grows up to 91 centimeters, that's 35 inches per day. interesting. The scene was a little contrived, but I can totally buy that P. stellivatori, being an interdimensional space fungus, can grow that fast. So there you have it.
Yeah, space fungus.
Yeah.
Okay. Del Nakamura says, a thought came to me when they cut to the scene of Laurel in the brig and reminded me of the same thought I had in the beginning of the season when Michael was sentenced to life in prison. Why wouldn't the society of the 23rd century have not progressed beyond just throwing criminals in a cell, isolating with nothing to do, no stimulation, no rehabilitation? I think there should be a better way to handle behavior problems like that by that time, and recognition that it's cruel to treat even criminals like that. Even for the hostile, like Laurel, they should give her access to things like the Klingon equivalent of an Xbox, or books to read, or music to listen to. She's just been sitting in the cell with nothing to do for weeks.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sort of in agreement. And plus, would they be carrying her for weeks on end, or would they put her to a transport ship to get to a penal colony? I don't know. I don't know. That's a good point, Del. Thank you. Now, Demir D says,
Just drove off.
Okay. We had promises from the producers that various inconsistencies between Discovery and Trek as we know it would be explained. To just be patient and give them time. Will those all be explained in a single episode? We are no closer to knowing why the spore drive is never mentioned or seen again. Maybe even further, now that we've seen it possible to regrow spores seemingly without much difficulty at will. We're also no closer to an explanation of why the Klingons all have ridges, which was what prompted the above quote from the producers in the first place. I sense a big disappointment on this coming, alas.
Jamar Williams says, one of the first things mentioned when Discovery enters the Mirror Universe was that the stars are not in the same place. So, could that mean Kronos would be in the same place Emperor Giorgio, Augustus, Laponis, Centaurus remembers from her universe? By the way, the Emperor, Captain Giorgio, looked quite fetching in that Starfleet uniform. Yes, she did.
Yes.
But she doesn't belong.
No, she does not. And it's going to be very interesting next episode. Well, let's get to some final thoughts. Christopher Query says, is it me or do the clips showing previous events have lines that were not spoken previously? I don't know that I caught that. Yeah. I bet Admiral Kirk wished he had command override of the Reliant instead of just lowering her shields. When Discovery made it back with Giorgio, they opened a can of temporal worms. Even if a lot of information is classified, Giorgio had read the Defiant files, which had information from the future. If the same war was in the same timeline, then she knows how it ends. She should also have read what happened to herself. My theory is that a new timeline is created whenever time travel occurs. Therefore, Giorgio can't know what will happen. So what do you think? Do you think that timelines and that jumping universes resets the timeline? Sort of like a parallel universe? Are we really in the prime, or is it some different prime?
It depends on what series we're talking about. Nobody had goatees in this one, so it's all dependent on what the writers want to do, how they want to work it, how they want to play it.
Yeah.
Alternate timelines, do they switch back? I don't know. I don't have a theory or thought on that. If the writers go that way, I would totally believe it, because I'm such a big fan of TNG Parallels, that episode where there's okay. This there's so many things that they've done that are not explained in canon, and I hate canon. There's so many things that are, and I don't care. I'm along for the ride. Bill Sweet says, I know Amy has been giving us a talking to about our cousin, so I'll just say, holy cheese and crackers. That's all caps. That was a corker of an episode. Thanks, Bill, for watching your language. I appreciate it. Everyone did much, much better this go around. I really do appreciate it. We get great character moments from so many of our faves here, from the glorious return of the Admiral to Sarek and more Saru in the captain's seat. That was a twist of all twists. To end all twists. We have definitely left the land of fan theories, nailing it and leaving it far behind in the dust, with the Emperor taking the chair. That preview for next week's looks off the hook as well. Although I'm nervous it'll end with a cliffhanger. God, I hope not. And I'm sure we will take some kind of hiatus of a year. It was fascinating to see what they did with the Michael-Ash relationship, though I do think the whole bit about Ash just being welcomed back and out of the brig stretches credibility to a breaking point. His butt needs to be in a cell, if only to protect him from well-deserved throttling courtesy of the grieving Stamets. I loved how they dealt with the whole issue of Kirk and company not knowing about the Mirror Universe 10 years later. It was simple, sensible, and once again should show the naysayers that this writing team knows their stuff and cares. Hear, hear. Also, did anyone think that while they were terraforming that asteroid, hey, maybe we can do a little Star Trek 3 and throw Culber down there? I'm also enjoying the show. I know I'm repeating myself when I say it feels good to have the kind of excitement watching a new episode like I did the first time watching TOS as a kid. And that's a big part of it. I agree.
Yes. Justin Ozer says, this was another amazing episode. I love that we saw the characters processing and discussing what happened to them. So many great character moments and incredible performances here that it would take me a long time to list them all. At the same time, there were concepts that took me completely by surprise, like terraforming a moon with spores and planning a jump into a cave beneath Konos. Seeing one and imagining the other was mind-blowing. The reveal at the end of Emperor Georgiou being passed off as Captain Georgiou is definitely one of the more surprising things for me that's happened in the entire season. I have no idea where that's going, but there's going to be an interesting clash on the discussions and methods in the next episode. Can't wait for next week. I think it's going to be an epic episode.
All right. Rebecca Skipper said, Saru and Tilly are my favorite characters, and it is gratifying to see them grow and embrace Starfleet ideals when other officers in the Federation are willing to compromise them. Burnham's heart is Starfleet, but their methods are questionable at times.
So, Tim, how do you think that the fans responded to this week's episode?
I think they hit all the major points. They're definitely watching this with open eyes. I remember the simpler times when people just complained about these weren't my Klingons.
Right.
Now it's, oh my God, look at this universe they've created for us too. It's Star Trek, but it's a new universe for us. It's kind of nice.
It is.
Yeah, it's fun. Questions though, I have tons about things. Going back to the first, one of the first episodes, I think episode 3, Black Badge. Where's the Black Badge? Was that just something to throw us off? I don't know. The Pavo planet. I want to go back there.
I sort of thought that when they were going to do the spore regeneration, that they were going to go back to Pavo, but then
because that's what it is.
Yeah,
everything's intertwined.
Yeah,
and on the planet, I thought for sure that's where they were going to go. And what's going to happen with all of Lorca's cool stuff?
Right.
All that stuff. Oh my God, where are they going to do with it? Museum? I don't know. Where are they going to put it?
Where's that Tribble?
Like that. Where's the Tribble? Yep. So it's and is Lorca really dead? Is there a Prime Universe Lorca out there?
Is there a Prime Universe Lorca? That is the question. That's a very good question. You think there is?
I bet there is. Yeah. Because they're all assuming that he's dead.
Yeah.
Show me a body. That's just, I think he's alive. Okay. I do. I hope so. I love Jason.
I know.
I think he rocked it.
Yep, he did.
Of course, he said on Twitter that, no, he's done. He's never coming back. But of course, he's lied all along.
I know, right? Why would you listen to me now? Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't wait for next week. It's going to be a show.
Yes.
Hopefully it's like 3 hours.
Oh, I know. I
think they have to make it that long.
I know. Every single week, I'm like, that can't be the end, when you sort of hear it. And I'm like, no, that's not the end. And then darn credits.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listeners, be sure to check out our Discovery coverage throughout the week. We have Live from the Edge that airs on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern, so you can watch Bruce and Brandy and ask questions live, and it will be released as a podcast on Tuesday mornings. Our commentary will be available as Tracks from the Edge, and that's with Mike Schindler. Love listening to that. And of course, we get your feedback on Postcards, and that drops on Thursday, as you know, because you're listening. And of course, you can catch full analysis on the Edge main show on Friday with Brandon. To wrap up the week, join us for Notes from the Edge on Saturday for links between Discovery and broader franchise with our Chris Jones. You can find all of these in the main feed for the Edge and in Trek.fm master feed. We would love to hear your thoughts on Discovery, and of course, you can join the conversation in the Babel Conference, as I talked about at the beginning of the episode. You can also find us on Twitter at TrekFM, or send us an email using the contact form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select the Edge. So, Tim, where can people talk to you about this new Star Trek Discovery?
I'm on the Babel Conference. You can find me there. I'm on Twitter at Tim Robertson 56. But I want everybody to go over to Warp 5 and listen to the episode I did with Brandy and Brandon and Patrick. That was a lot of fun. We talked about the episode First Light, the Enterprise episode First Light, and how it compares with the movie The Right Stuff, which is my favorite movie of all time.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun to do. And I also have my own podcast. It's not a Star Trek podcast. It's an astronomy podcast. So if you have an amateur astronomer in your life and you want to get them interested in a little podcast, it's called The Observer's Notebook. And it's the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. And Amy listens to it every week.
I do. It's really fun. I'm learning so much, and it keeps me updated. I knew that we were going to have this eclipse that just happened a week or so ago. So, yep, it's very good and entertaining. Well, you can find me here on the network. I host Earl Grey, which is our podcast about the next generation, because that's my favorite. Yes, I said it, my favorite. And you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. But again, my favorite place is on the Babel Conference, reading and liking all of your comments. We would like to thank our many associate producers. They are Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, and Cornelia Reutner. Thank you so much for being an associate producer and supporting Trek FM and The Edge. Now, if you'd like to help us keep all of our shows going and even become an associate producer, visit patreon.com/TrekFM for all the details. Well, thank you, Tim, again for coming on Postcards. So much fun talking Discovery with you.
I love podcasting with you, Amy. It's so much fun.
It is. And looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
Yes.
Yes. So, listeners, join us next week for another one of our last episodes of Postcards from the Edge. Hailing frequencies open.